We're opening this one up with straight talk about the rumor that's been shaking the offseason. Mac Jones and the way he quietly changed everything for the Niners. You saw what happened when Brock Purdy missed time. The offense did not implode because Mac stepped in, managed the game, and delivered clutch wins. 5-3 in relief, including that game winner in Arizona and a huge night against the Rams. That's not the flashiest narrative, but it's the one that matters. Quarterback. Security. Kyle Shanahan designs an offense that rewards timing and accuracy, and Mac showed he can run that system, read coverages, and make the throws when it counts. More than that, he revived a career that a lot of people had written off, and suddenly Mac isn't just a backup. He's a roster asset with real value. Now the team faces a classic roster crossroads. Keep the security and continuity you earned, or flip that value into players who fix the other. Chronic shortcomings on this roster. It's tempting to wave a trade flag when a thin quarterback class looms. Scarcity makes a guy like Mac more valuable on the market. But there's a cost to giving up that on-field insurance, and I want you to think about which side you're on. Would you rather lock down a proven, scheme-ready QB2, or roll the dice to bring back reinforcements elsewhere? Tell me yes or no in the comments. Be honest. Single-word answers help the conversation. Quick note while you think that over. If you value this kind of breakdown and want daily Niners updates, hit subscribe and help push the channel to 1,000 subscribers so we can keep the coverage coming. Throw a like on the video too if you want more trade and draft heat. Back to Mac. The coaching staff has publicly said they expect him back, and that's not a small detail. Keeping him preserves the safest path to a deep playoff run because injuries happen, and we all saw how pivotal that stability was. On the other hand, a market driven by a thin QB class could return meaningful draft capital or immediate starters if the front office believes the roster needs a bigger overhaul at the trenches or on defense. That's where the real tension lies. Do you prioritize short-term championship upside with a secure QB room, or do you use Mac as currency to accelerate a longer-term roster rebuild? In the next section, I'll break down who could realistically step into the backup role if Mac is moved. Yes, that includes Curtis Rohr from Indiana. And I'll map out the draft and trade groundwork the front office might be eyeing. If Mac Jones does get moved, that's where Curtis Rohr starts to become a real part of the conversation. And this isn't just random fan speculation. The Niners already opened his practice window late in the season, which tells you they wanted a closer look. That matters. Curtis Rohr is a big-bodied quarterback who came up under Curt Cignetti, and Cignetti doesn't hand out endorsements lightly. He identified Rohr as his guy, brought him to Indiana, and that program ended up making the college football playoff. That alone gives you a glimpse into how he's viewed by people who actually evaluate talent for a living. Rohr isn't a runner who's going to scare defenses with his legs, but in Kyle Shanahan's system, that's not a requirement. What matters is touch, timing, layering throws, and feeling pressure in the pocket. Rohr checks those boxes, and that's why he profiles as a developmental QB2 who could grow behind Brock Purdy while learning the offense. Now, zoom out for a second, because this ties directly into why Mac Jones suddenly carries real trade value. The upcoming quarterback class is thin. Fernando Mendoza sits at the top right now, and after that, things get murky fast. Dante Moore went back to school. Other names come with serious question marks. When supply drops and demand stays high, prices rise. That's basic economics, and it applies to NFL quarterbacks too. Teams that miss out in the draft are going to look toward veterans who've already proven they can start games. And Mac just put together a stretch that showed exactly that. So even though Kyle Shanahan has said he expects Mac back, All it takes is one desperate team offering premium picks, or multiple contributors for the front office to listen. And if that happens, the Niners suddenly have options. They can roll with Brock Purdy as the unquestioned starter, elevate Curtis Rohr into the backup role, and still draft a quarterback for competition and development. Or they can skip quarterback entirely in the draft and pour those resources into the offensive line, defensive front, or skill positions. That flexibility is the real value of Mac Jones right now. He's not just a player, he's leverage. Let me ask you this, because this is where opinions really split. If Mac gets traded, are you comfortable going into next season with Brock Purdy and Curtis Rohr as your top two quarterbacks? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the draft breakdowns that are coming fast. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and your support genuinely matters. In the next part, we're diving into specific trade ideas fans are floating, including Mac Jones for Walter Nolan, why that one probably doesn't make sense, and how all of this connects to the Niners' biggest problems in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Now, let's get into some of the trade ideas floating around, because this is where things start to get really interesting, and, in some cases, a little unrealistic. One proposal that's been making the rounds is Mac Jones, plus a third-round pick to Arizona for Walter Nolan. On paper, I get why fans bring it up. Walter Nolan is explosive. He flashed as one of the most impactful defensive players on that Cardinals unit, and interior pass rush is a glaring need for San Francisco. But once you zoom in, this deal starts to fall apart fast. First off, you're talking about sending a quarterback who just proved he can win games in Kyle Shanahan's system to a division rival. That alone is a tough sell. Then you add in the injury factor. Nolan is coming off an Achilles, and for a big-bodied interior defensive lineman who wins with quickness and power, that's not a small red flag. If he had stayed healthy all year and dominated, maybe you at least have the conversation. But trading Mac and a premium pick for a player rehabbing a major injury, especially inside the division, is not how smart teams operate. And that brings us to the bigger picture, the trenches. This roster has to get better up front, and it's not optional anymore. On defense, it's not just about edge rushers. Yes, Nick Bosa is your cornerstone. Yes, you've got speed options like Bryce Huff, and young pieces you hope can grow. But interior pressure has been inconsistent, and when quarterbacks can step up cleanly, even elite edge rushers get neutralized. The Niners need more athleticism, more depth, and more disruption at defensive tackle. That's how you close games in January. On offense, it's the same story. The interior offensive line was a problem all season. When your center and guards are getting pushed back into your quarterback's lap, nothing works the way it's supposed to. Christian McCaffrey felt that every week. Brock Purdy felt it. It kills timing, it limits your playbook, and it forces perfect execution just to survive drives. You can't live like that. The Niners have to take the offensive line more seriously this offseason, especially at center and left guard. This isn't about tweaking around the edges anymore. This is about making real investments so your offense can function the way Kyle Shanahan designs it. So when you hear Mac Jones trade rumors, this is what they're really tied to. It's not just quarterback drama. It's about whether San Francisco can use that asset to rebuild the core of the team. Do you turn Mac into draft, capital, or starters that fortify the trenches? Or do you keep him and try to patch holes elsewhere? That's the philosophical debate happening right now inside the building. Let me throw this one to you. If you had to choose, would you rather see the Niners prioritize offensive line upgrades or defensive line upgrades this offseason? Pick one and drop it in the comments. And if you're enjoying these deep dives, make sure you hit like and subscribe. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps keep this channel growing. Coming up next, we're shifting to the offensive side of the ball with the A.J. Brown rumors, draft strategy around Trent Williams, and how the Niners could completely reshape their receiver room overnight. All right, now let's talk about the rumor that really gets people fired up. A.J. Brown and the idea of completely reshaping this offense overnight. This is where things move from practical roster construction into true splash territory. Around the league, there's real belief that A.J. Brown could be moved, and multiple executives have felt that way for months. Jeremy Fowler even floated the idea publicly, and while he pointed to Buffalo as a potential landing spot, NFL scouts have also mentioned the 49ers as a legitimate fit, along with teams like the Raiders and Browns. That alone tells you San Francisco is being discussed in serious circles, not just fan forums. Now think about what A.J. Brown would actually mean in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He's still a physical monster at the catch point, he's elite after the catch, and even if he's lost a fraction of a step, his game isn't built on pure speed anyway. He wins with strength, balance, and body control. In this system, that's deadly. You'd be talking about the most talented wide receiver Shanahan has coached since Julio Jones. And there's a reason people love that comparison. Similar build, similar play style, similar ability to take over games. Imagine lining up A.J. Brown with Ricky Pearsall, then adding another young receiver through the draft or free agency. That's how you fix a wide receiver room fast. Not slowly, not over 3 years. Overnight. Of course, it wouldn't come without complications. A.J. is vocal. He wants targets. He wants to win. But let's be real, that's most elite wide receivers. If Kyle Shanahan schemes him open and feeds him the ball, those problems usually disappear. The bigger obstacle is whether the Eagles would actually move him, and especially whether they'd send him to an NFC contender they might see in the playoffs. That's the hardest part of this whole scenario. Then there's the cost. A.J. Brown is about to turn 29, and his production dipped this past season compared to his peak years. Because of that, you're probably not talking about a first-round pick anymore. More likely something like a second and a third, unless Philadelphia decides to jack up the price simply because San Francisco is in the NFC. Compare that to Justin Jefferson, who's only 26, and would likely command a first plus a second, maybe even more, possibly including Mac Jones, since Minnesota still needs a quarterback. That's why A.J. feels more realistic if the Niners truly want to swing big at receiver. But wideout isn't the only draft storyline. Trent Williams is getting older, and he's been carrying this offensive line for years. At some point, the Niners have to find his successor. One smart approach is drafting an offensive tackle, playing him at left guard right away, then sliding him out to left tackle whenever Trent eventually hangs it up. That gives you continuity instead of panic. So now you're looking at a first-round decision between offensive line, wide receiver, or even defensive front, depending on how the board falls. Let me ask you straight up, if you could only choose one, would you rather the Niners trade for A.J. Brown or use that capital to draft offensive line help? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and like the video. Draft season is ramping up fast, and we're pushing hard toward 1,000 subscribers with non-stop Niners coverage. In the final part, we're talking about organizational investment, linebacker depth, and what I believe is the single biggest need of this entire offseason. Let's bring it home by zooming out to the organizational level, because this offseason isn't just about splashy trades or draft picks. It's about whether the 49ers are willing to invest in themselves the way championship teams do. There's been real concern around the practice field and player health, and this is where ownership matters. This franchise is worth billions. The brand is iconic. Revenue keeps climbing. Super Bowl 60 is on the horizon. When players are getting hurt and your own roster is voicing concerns, that directly impacts your ability to win and your ability to attract free agents. An athlete's body is everything. If there's even a chance that infrastructure is contributing to injuries, you study it, you fix it, and you don't hesitate. That's not an expense. That's protecting your most valuable assets. On the roster side, linebacker depth is another quiet storyline. Eric Kendricks showed he can still play, but he's deep into his career, and at this stage, it comes down to whether he even wants to keep going, especially if the role is reduced behind Fred Warner. Garrett Wallow, on the other hand, is younger and fits the profile of a depth piece who can grow while helping immediately. With all the injuries this team has dealt with, you simply can't have too many capable bodies at that position. And when you put everything together, Mac Jones, trade leverage, Curtis Rohr as a developmental option, the need to rebuild the trenches, A.J. Brown rumors, draft strategy around Trent Williams, and organizational investment, it all points to one truth. This offseason is about balance. The Niners aren't one move away. They're several smart decisions away. They need to protect Brock Purdy, give Christian McCaffrey room to breathe, generate interior pressure on defense, and add speed and explosion on offense. That's the blueprint. So I'll leave you with this, because this is the question that defines the entire offseason. What is the single biggest need for the 49ers right now? Offensive line, defensive line, wide receiver, or something else? Drop one answer in the comments. And if you've made it this far, make sure you like the video and subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. We've got draft, free agency, and trade coverage coming non-stop, and you don't want to miss it.